What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got a reaction to the Mountain Goats and their album, The Sunset Tree, brought to us by our friend, longtime supporter and patron of the channel, Caitlin. Thank you, Caitlin. Always appreciate you. Appreciate everything that you bring me. She's brought me some great Bright Eyes full album reactions. There's 3 of them up. Go check them out after this. Thanks to all the patrons that make this thing go. It takes so much time and effort, guys. We put in up videos every single day, so we appreciate any support you consider giving us. Check out the Patreon link below or the patron link on the end screen. All right, we have a couple of song reactions up at the Mountain Goats, but that's about it. So let's dive into this. A little bit of research before we start. A little bit about the Mountain Goats, if you don't know who they are. They're an American band formed in Claremont, California by singer-songwriter John Darnielle. The band is currently based in Durham, North Carolina. For many years, the sole member of the Mountain Goats was John Darnielle, despite the plural moniker. Although he remains a core member of the band, he has worked with a variety of collaborators over time, including bassist and vocalist Peter Hughes, drummer John Worster, multi-instrumentalist Matt Douglas, singer-songwriter Franklin Bruno, bassist and vocalist Rachel Ware, singer-songwriter-producer John Vanderslice, guitarist Khaki King, we'll go with that, and multi-instrumentalist Annie Clark. Throughout the 1990s, the Mountain Goats were known for producing low-fidelity home recordings, most notably on a cassette deck boombox, and I have listened to 1 or 2 of those when we're doing our album draft series we're doing year by year here on the channel, and releasing recordings in cassette or vinyl 7-inch formats. Since 2002, the Mountain Goats have adopted a more polished approach, often recording studio albums with a full band. Let's move on to this album. It's their 9th studio album, released on April 26, 2005 by 4AD. The album's songs revolve around the house John Darnielle grew up in and the people who live there, including his mother, sister, stepfather, friends, and enemies. It has a recurring theme of domestic violence. The album title refers to a scene in Samuel Butler's The Way of All Flesh, in which the character Theobald beats his son Ernest for being unable to pronounce a hard C when singing a hymn. In the album's liner notes, Darnielle writes, "Made possible by my stepfather, Mike Noonan, 1940 to 2004. May the peace which eluded you in life be yours now. Dedicated any young men and women anywhere who live with people who abuse them. With the following good news, you're going to make it out of there alive. You will live to tell your story. Never lose hope." I thought that was fantastic. I grew up in a house of domestic violence with my father, and you're not here to hear me get into my feels, but I have a feeling this is going to be an emotional listen for me, but a constructive one. Metacritic 83 out of 100, sky high. Pitchfork 102 on their top 200 albums of the 2000s. On this particular album, we'll just cover it up front. Of course, John Darnielle on vocals and guitar. Peter Hughes on bass and backing vocals. Eric Friedlander on cello. Alex DeCarvel on drums. Franklin Bruno on piano. John Vanderslice handles the production duties. All tracks written by John Darnielle. The music will not be up in this video, but it'll be on a Vimeo link below. I really encourage you to listen along to this one with me, and really to all of our stuff, but this one in particular. There's 13 songs, but it's only 39 minutes long. I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Caitlin. We're going to start it off with You or Your Memory. John Darnielle said in 2006, "This is a song about how someday you might find yourself in a hotel." Well, hotel is a generous term. "You might find yourself in a motor lodge, the Royal Hawaiian Motor Lodge on Crenshaw. There's a Polaroid picture of a naked lady in the window of the Royal Hawaiian, and it says, 'Sexy movie, $5. That's how you know it's a class act, the Royal Hawaiian. You may find yourself there someday, plotting what you might do there. I don't recommend what you had in mind. Better days are coming.'" I can already read between the lines there. All right, let's get it. You or Your Memory. Now, if you didn't know that he dedicated this to his stepfather and everything I talked about with the domestic violence, this could also be a song to a significant other, right? To a girl, someone who's broke his heart, but he's setting the stage of being in this hotel. Just everything. He walked down to the corner store just before nightfall with my bare feet, just letting you know he doesn't really care, right? When I came back, I spread out my supplies on the counter by the sink. I looked myself right in the eyes. I mean, you absolutely picture everything he's telling you, right? You forget it's a song. I'm just listening to him tell a story. The chorus, St. Joseph's baby aspirin. So people chew baby aspirin to get a cheap high, right? Bartles and James. I don't even know if they're still around. They were around when I was in high school when I'm 51. There were wine coolers. They used to have commercials. Wine coolers are, if you love them, God bless you. But, and You or Your Memory. This is where he's talking about his stepfather. And he's thinking about doing some things that he shouldn't be thinking about doing. I ducked behind the drapes when I saw the moon begin to rise. gathered in my loose ends, switched off the light. And down there in the dark, I could see the real truth about me. As clear as day, Lord, if I make it through tonight, then I will mend my ways and I will walk the straight path to the end of my days. How many of us haven't? I mean, I'm a Christian. If you're not a Christian, haven't like pledge. All right, God, get me out of this. And I'll be good the rest of the time, which is not true because we can't be. It's not our nature, but we might have the best intentions. But a very powerful way to start this album out. Let's move on to the second track, Broom People. Broom People. So in this, John's describing that house that he grew up in, and he's writing this to his girlfriend. And I read that 3 or 4 other songs on here we're going to get that he's writing to his girlfriend there. But he's basically talking about, I mean, the chorus is so right? Friends who don't have a clue, well-meaning teachers, but down in your arms, I am a wild creature. In other words, everyone in his life doesn't have a clue what's going on, right? They don't know that his dad's abusive and what he's going through at home, or even if he's not abusive, just the thought of like, what's he going to do? But his girlfriend knows, so he can really be himself with her. And this is so true. I mean, people didn't know what was going on inside of my house. And if I just alluded to the fact I didn't like my dad, he was he's still alive, but he was a very charming person in a short-term aspect, right? He couldn't keep it up long-term, but in a short-term, like, oh man, your dad's a really nice guy. Yeah, something like that. So I thought this was very good. And if you've gone through this yourself, and I know so many have, unfortunately, probably more have than haven't, you know this to be true, right? The teachers, the friends, they have well-meaning intentions. They have no idea what you are going through. All right, let's go to This Year. This Year, tremendously written song, right? It's all about his rebellion against his stepfather, right? And it has a little bit of shades of Bruce Springsteen as far as like in the start. Broke free on a Saturday morning, I put the pedal to the floor, headed north on Mills Avenue, and listened to the engine roar behind the wheel, just speeding away from his problems. Now he's going to have to return to him, but for this moment, he can feel free. My broken house behind me and good things ahead. A girl named Kathy wants a little of my time. 6 cylinders underneath the hood, crashing and kicking. Aha. Listen to the engine whine. So that's all Bruce Springsteen 101, right? But then the chorus, I'm going to make it through this year if it kills me. And it really sticks in your head the way he sings it. And it's interesting because John has a podcast. I only listen to the Mountain Goats. And he talked about this chorus. He said, this year has a placeholder chorus. That was just, okay, this is where I'll put the chorus and it will have an A-B rhyme scheme. And Peter was the guy who said to me, no, you're done. That's all there is to it. He wasn't forceful about it because he knows if you tell me what to do lyrically, I'll be like, no, I'm the guy who writes the lyrics. But he was like, I remember him being, I think it's fine the way it is, because I was going to make it rhyme. But actually, would that song be anywhere near as effective without the fact that it's just one line that everyone can remember? I would say no. And then verse 3, I played video games in a drunken haze. I was 17 years young, hurt my knuckles punching the machines, the taste of scotch rich on my tongue, right? When we go through any sort of ongoing trauma or difficulty, we got to have a coping mechanism, right? And when you grow up with an alcoholic father, many times it is alcoholic. And I don't know if his stepfather was alcoholic, but that's usually a common denominator. I know mine was. I actually was fortunate enough and blessed enough to somehow find a sport, basketball, and I spent like an insane amount of time playing basketball, 9 or 10 hours a day, most days outside of school. And yeah, so that was my escape. Not healthy, no matter what it is, drinking, sport, whatever. Too much of a thing is still too much. And then Kathy showed up and they hung out, and then he goes through the course again. But then verse 5, he's about to go home and face it all, right? I drove home in the California dusk. I could feel the alcohol inside of me home. Picture the look on my stepfather's face, ready for the bad things to come. I downshifted as I pulled in the driveway, the motor screaming out, stuck in second gear. So, right, it's already in it, like he's in there. He's announcing he's there because it's stuck in second gear. The scene ends badly, as you might imagine, in a cavalcade of anger and fear. There will be feasting and dancing in Jerusalem next year. That is a fantastic line, because this is what they would say in ancient times in Jerusalem when the Passover was done and it was completed. They would say there will be feasting and dancing in Jerusalem next year. Give you something to look forward to. John 17, so he's probably looking forward to the fact that this is the last year I got to be in this house. I graduated at 17. I didn't turn 18 until August, and I left the house ASAP. Like, I was not in that house that summer, and I never returned on a permanent basis. But I thought that was just great, and he gets to the chorus again. Yes, I'm going to read you a lot of lyrics because the instrumentation on this album, and I haven't talked about it yet, 3 songs in, it's perfect. It's low-key. It's well done, but it doesn't take over a song at all, at least not yet. It's all about the lyrics and the feeling. Now we go to the fourth song. And I tried to see how to say, I'm going to say Dilaudid. I don't know if that's correct or not, but what Dilaudid is, it's a narcotic, right? It's a pain reliever. It's 2 to 8 times more potent than morphine, but a shorter duration and greater sedation. And before a 2006 performance, John said of the song, "You shouldn't mix pills. They tell you not to mix if you were 16 and you think you are tough." Some things I read said John actually became a heroin addict when he was 17. I found that in some places. I didn't find it in others. So I'm not telling you that's true. Track's instrumentals are made up of a looping cello riff. All right. Dilaudid, or I could be butchering the pronunciation, but the looping cello instrumental on there builds an anxiousness throughout the track that I think lends well to it. As far as what it's definitely about drug use, and some people think this person he's talking to is transgender. You get into a lot of interpretation stuff. I don't really have any idea about that. And I don't think it's about that. He's basically just saying trying to get away from the drug use, yet it keeps pulling you back in. So, yeah, I mean, it fits with the overall narrative for sure. Now we go to dance music. Dance music, under 2 minutes long, but just shows you what you can do with 2 minutes. Nice piano on here. And he just paints the scene again, right? So he's painting the scene of being in his house. He's in the living room watching the Watergate hearings while my stepfather yells at my mother, launches a glass across the room straight at her head, and I dash upstairs to take cover, leaning close to my little record player on the floor. So this is what the volume knob's for, trying to not hear it, right? Because hearing it stresses you out even more. I listen to dance music. So that's where the dance puts on that dance music and tries to drown it out. So then he goes to verse 4, and he's talking about his girlfriend. He says, "Okay, so look, I'm 17 years old, and you're the best thing. You're the last best thing I've got going." That's great songwriting. Like, there's not going to be anything better than this. And he said in an interview in 2015 that this part of the song is about an incident with his girlfriend that took place when he was 17 years old. He said him and his girlfriend were using drugs heavily, actually heroin. So there's the heroin. One evening, they arrived at her house and were surprised by the police. The girl's mother had called law enforcement officers after discovering her drug stash, which John described in retrospect as, quote, "the right thing to do." So he said, but then this special secret sickness starts to eat through you. What am I supposed to do? No way of knowing. So I follow you down your twisting alleyways, find a few cul-de-sacs of my own. So he's following her down the drug use. He's doing a few things over here on his own. There's only one place this road ever ends up, and I don't want to die alone. Let me down, let me down, let me down gently. When the police come to get me, I'm listening to dance music. I mean, this freaking album is just insanely well written. Pretty up to the 6th track, Dino Lipati's Bones. Constantine Dinu Lipati was a Romanian classical pianist and composer whose career was cut short by his death from causes related to Hodgkin's disease at age 33 in 1950. A relentless perfectionist, he often prepared many years for major performances, such as 4 years for Beethoven's Piano Concerto No. 5 and 3 for Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto No. 1. He left a small number of recordings, and they are well regarded. This guy's a total perfectionist. John has described it as, quote, "a love song for an old friend, a girlfriend with whom he spent turbulent summers doing hard drugs." So here she is again, and I guess he's gonna wrap it up in Dino's Bones here. Dino Lipati's Bones, a little different instrumentally and arrangement-wise, ending with the long coda there. So well done with the keyboard and the guitar work throughout this whole thing. And it's basically just the gist of the story is that he sees his girlfriend, like obviously he told us in the last one, he's doing the drugs too, but he's getting out of it, and he's watching her go down this path that he can't save her from. She's zoned out. All he can do is look at her and make sure that she's all right. So he's talking about how all summer long they kept themselves locked in, trying to escape everybody, but it was for to no avail. And so that was basically them just building a tower. We raised a tower to broadcast all of our dreams from Dino Lipati's Bones. So, and we built a little house so we could live in out of Dino Lipati's Bones. So he was just using that as a metaphor. Next up, we have Up the Wolves. It was featured prominently in an episode of the 4th season of the AMC series The Walking Dead. Both the song and the episode are about coming into one's own as an adult, regardless of the difficulties you've faced in the past. John said in 2007, "I'm always trying to figure out what to say about this damn song. Part of me wants to say, look, it's about revenge, but as soon as I say that, no, that's not quite it. Part of me wants to say it's about the satisfaction of not needing revenge, and I say, no, that's some new age stuff. I think it's a song about the moment in your quest for revenge when you learn to embrace the futility of it. The moment when you know that the thing you want is ridiculous and pompous and a terrible thing to want anyway. The direction in where you're headed is not the direction in which you want to go. Yet you're going to head that way a while longer. anyway, because that's just the kind of person you are. Wow. I mean, I cannot tell you how many years of my life I spent fantasizing about getting into a physical altercation with my father. So this, I haven't thought about that since I was about 35 years old, and kind of had a breakthrough moment as I became a Christian and kind of got peace with everything. Well, did not kind of got peace with everything, but I'm just reading his words here. Yeah, that just a fantasy of revenge is it's almost all encompassing. All right, let's check it out. Up the wolves. So he's referring to his stepfather as the wolf here. And another place in the next song, he refers to him as a lion. He also refers to him as a magpie. In song 10, from what I read, and you know, I think the first verse is great. There's bound to be a ghost at the back of your closet, no matter where you live. There'll always be a few things, maybe several things, that you're going to find really difficult to forgive. So, I mean, we all have that, right? Maybe you grew up and everything was fine with your parents, but you lived in poverty or difficulty, or you're being bullied, or relationship problems, or health. I mean, or maybe you had no parents at all and you were like, everybody has something, right? This just happens to be John's and happens to be mine growing up. There's going to come a day when you feel better. You'll rise up free and easy on that day and float from branch to branch, lighter than the air. Just when that day is coming, who can say? Who can say? So he's giving you, there's light at the end of that proverbial tunnel. And then, of course, our mother has been absent ever since we founded Rome. There's going to be a party when the wolf comes home, when his stepfather comes home. It's not really going to be a party, but I think he said before that he had issues with his mother, like her being absent. Our mother's been absent. She really wasn't absent, but she was absent in the way that she could have protected him and his sister, and she didn't, and kind of the feelings that he had about that. And I've dealt with that a little bit in my own life because I didn't have a choice to leave, but my mom could have taken me out of that environment. So I get it. So another really well-written song. Now up to the 8th track, Lion's Teeth. Lion's Teeth. John himself has said this was a revenge fantasy song, and I mean, you see it all over it. The king of the jungle was asleep in his car. When your chances fell in your lap like that, you got to recognize them for what they are. Nobody in this house wants to own up to the truth. No one talks about it, right? If you don't talk about it, it doesn't make it so. I crawl in shotgun and reach into his mouth and grab hold of one long sharp tooth and hold on for dear life. I hold on, so shotgun. So maybe his stepdad came home drunk, passed out in the car, and he knows this is a chance he could sneak in shotgun on the passenger side and maybe suffocate him, but he knows he can't hold on long enough. Well, of course, he wakes up, his paw hits a horn. I'm going to regret that the day I was born. And then mom rushes out to the driveway, my sister too, everyone's screaming, I'm dreaming of you. And when he talks about it, he's usually talking about this girl that we talked about, who I guess her name's Kathy, who's appeared in the other songs. And my arms get sore, my palms start to sweat, and the tears roll down my face till my cheeks are hot and red and soaking wet. In come the cops, they blowtorch the doors. I start wailing, the lion roars. There's no good way to end this, anyone can see. There's this great big you and little old me, and we hold on for dear life. We hold on, we hold on. So, oftentimes when you call the cops, they don't really get involved. They make things worse because they're not going to haul him out of there. He's just that much madder. So, yeah, great song, man. And I thought in this one, too, the instrumentation really lent to this song. It built up that drama, again, especially the percussion, the drumming. It built up that drama. So, well done. Up to the 9th track. Hast thou considered the Tetrapod? In 2008, John said, this is one of those songs where when I tell people what it's about, they look really uncomfortable and they don't laugh at the parts that I think are funny when I tell the story. Here, I'll show you. So this is one of those songs about how if you're 13 and you live in a house where your stepfather beats your mother nightly. See, I told you. Some of us from these houses, we laugh when we remember the things. I don't know why. If I figure out why, I'm going to write a self-help book about it. But in the meantime, this is a song about the headphones that were most important to me when I was 14. Just like that small record player, right, in the previous song, that he figured out what the volume knob was for. Also, nice little coda on that. Hast thou considered the Tetrapod? And he just tells the story, man, of coming home and finding his stepfather asleep, spit bubbling on your lips, fine white foam. So it sounds like, he's coming home. You're sleeping off your demons when I come home. So I read, though, here it says that even though it sounds like the stepfather drank, he actually didn't drink, but I used to tell myself my father's demons were because he was drunk, but then when he wasn't drunk, it's really every bit as mean. It just enhanced it a little bit. I'm young and I'm good. It's a hot Southern California day. If I wake you up, there'll be hell to pay. So he goes into his room, puts on his headphones, and then all of a sudden he's in this dream world, deep in the dream chamber, probably not asleep, just, daydreaming. And then I wake and I'm guarding my face, hoping you don't break my stereo because it's the one thing that I couldn't live without. And so I think about that, and then I sort of black out, held under these smoldering waves by your strong and thick-veined hand. But one of these days, I'm going to wriggle up on dry land, and that's the tetrapod. The tetrapod was a four-legged vertebrate which once dwelt underwater under smothering waves, but now dwell on land and show few signs of ever being marine animals. So John's hoping to leave his home and, go off to college and wherever and get away from this guy. So another extremely well-written song. And I really identify with it. I mean, I told you basketball was my escape and music was my escape. Those were the two things. So I get it. And really the only song I don't really have any notes on, Magpie. Magpie, which is it's a bird. It's like a raven or a crow. And, he's just try hard to do your best. The magpie will have his way. He says, feed the kittens in the kitchen, set food out for the strays, try hard to do your best. The magpie will have his way. So kind of talking about how you try to get away from him and do your stuff in the house without him around. Work all night if you have to. The magpie comes at noon, either gets up at noon or comes home from work at noon. So you try to do stuff to kind of stay out of the way. So I can identify with that. A good song, really well done. Guitar work on that one. Now you've got Song for Dennis Brown. Dennis Brown was a Jamaican reggae singer who died in 1991. During his prolific career, which began in the late 60s, when he was 11, he recorded more than 75 albums and was one of the major stars of lovers rock, a subgenre of reggae. Bob Marley cited Brown as his favorite singer, dubbing him the crown prince of reggae, and Brown would prove influential on future generations of reggae singers. I've never heard of Dennis Brown. All right. Song for Dennis Brown. Basically just a song about, Dennis Brown dies, but stuff still goes on daily in Jamaica, right? He's describing everything that's going on. And then, John's talking about him dying and everything will still go on, right? Our loved ones that people care about are going to mourn, but life still just continues to roll. And he's saying, that he's going to die in the same way as lungs are going to collapse, which honestly, when we all die, our lungs collapse. So that might not cause the death, and then even at the end, maybe a little bit of a drug illusion in there, quite possibly. Now we get to the penultimate track, Love, Love, Love. John said in 2005, the point of the song is, that we are fairly well damaged by the legacy of the romantic poets, that we think of love as this, thing that is accompanied by strings and it's a force for good. And if something bad happens, then that's not love. And the therapeutic tradition that I come from, I used to work in therapy, also says that it's not love if it feels bad. I don't know so much about that. I don't know that the Greeks weren't right. I think they were. That love can eat a path through everything, that it will destroy a lot of things on the way to its own objective, which is just this expression of itself, my stepfather loved his family, right? Now, he mistreated us terribly quite often, but he loved us. And that to me is something worth commenting on in the hopes of undoing a lot of what I perceive is terrible damage in the way people talk about this. Love is this benign, comfortable force. It's not that. It's wild, Love, love, love. Continuing that fantastic acoustic work from the last song for Dennis Brown. And as a Christian, I identify with a lot of this song. Just what he's talking about. He says that King Saul fell on a sword when it all went wrong, and Joseph's brothers sold him down the river for a song, and Sonny Liston rubbed some tiger balm into his glove. Some things you do for money and some things you do for love, love, love. And then some things you'll do for money, some things you'll do for fun. But the things you do for love are going to come back to you one by one. And then the bridge, love, love, is going to lead you by the hand into a white and soundless place. Now we see things as in a mirror dimly. Then we shall see each other face to face. It's an allusion to 1 Corinthians 13:12, talking about how someday we'll see the Lord face to face. And then a little Kurt Cobain at the end. A little shout out to Kurt Cobain. Snuck out to the greenhouse, put a bullet in his brain. Yeah, just another, like you would expect, powerful song. All right, last track. We got Pale Green Things. Upon hearing of his abusive stepfather's death, John was flooded with a number of long repressed memories and emotions. One such memory was of his stepfather bringing him to the racetrack, which he recounts here. Pale Green Things. This isn't the best song on here, but it's just a wonderful song because it gives you closure, right? It brings everything full circle. He's talking about a memory he has with his stepfather. Got up before dawn, went down to the racetrack, riding with the windows down shortly after your first heart attack. You park behind the paddock, cracking asphalt underfoot, coming up through the cracks, and you get the pale green things, pale green things. He keeps revisiting this motif of these different green things that I guess just gives it some sort of chorus. Verse 2, you watch the horses run their workouts. You held your stopwatch in your left hand and a racing form beneath your arm, casting your gaze way out to no man's land. So he's just kind of zoned out. Sometimes I'll meet you out there lonely and frightened, when he's probably thinking about his stepfather and that pale green things. Then it comes, right? The call comes. My sister called at 3 a.m. just last December. She told me how you died. And John said this in 2014 in an interview. He said that while you don't wish, he said he remembers about the moment his sister called him at 3 a.m. You don't wish on anybody. You don't wish death on anybody. It's wonderful when your abuser dies. To know that the person who used to hurt you no longer can is very, very deep. I mean, and he said that death led obviously to writing this album. And so he just kind of talks about that. The morning at the racetrack was one thing I remember. I turned it over in my mind like a living Chinese finger trap. Those little things you put your fingers in. Seaweed in Indiana, sawgrass. So he's revisiting those pale green things as he finishes it out. So I think he's probably, I'm just guessing here, speculating that he has this memory, that it was a decent memory. It was one of the only good memories. I have like 5 decent memories of my father the entire time I was growing up. So you remember those things in like an amplified way. I don't look back on them like, oh, that was great. But you look back on them like, because it didn't have all of the other tension in it. Well, now we're going to get to my favorite tracks. And partway through this album, I decided, what, for the first time ever, I'm not going to pick favorite tracks just because this album's powerful and the story it's telling. But then I got to the point where, yeah, I can do it. So I don't have any honorable mentions. These are all just going to be faves because of the way they fit into the narrative. You Or Your Memory, Broom People, This Year, Dance Music, Up the Wolves, Lion's Teeth, and Pale Green Things. So that is 7 of the 13 tracks. Now we'll get to my overall score. And this one is difficult to score for a few reasons. First, I'll cover the negatives. Some people don't like John's voice. I think it's fine. He's not a songbird. He doesn't need to be. He's telling a great story. The instrumentation, unless it's sparse yet highly effective. For me, I resonate so much with this album. I think he just did an absolutely fantastic job. Anybody who grows up in a house of abuse, like, just resonate. He did it just so well. I mean, I can't even put it into words. It was fantastic, man. So that's going to skew my grade a little bit, and I'm trying to recognize that and be objective. So I think I'm going to give this an 8.25. It's a masterclass in songwriting, as are the Bright Eyes albums that Caitlin brought me with Conor Oberst. So John Darnielle on this in particular. There's nothing more powerful, they say, as a songwriter than when you write about your own experiences. And this album is living proof of that. So I'll go an 8.25. For me personally, resonating with it, it's more like a 9.25 or a 9.5. It's a tough listen. I don't think I'll ever go back and listen to it again. Not because it's not great, because it's so highly personal, but it was cathartic and I did enjoy it. So thank you, Caitlin, once again. Just fantastic. Let me know what you guys think of this down below. What else I should check out from the Mountain Goats. Give us a thumbs up if you will, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, I will see you.